like the way they fight.
Sometimes you may think it's not real, but it's real, man. I saw some pain out there.
It's gotta be real.
It's gotta be real.
Some matches are kind of rigged.
Why is pro wrestling becoming so popular? Find out when we enter the arena of WrestleMania, next on Town Hall.
And now, your moderator, Jack Faust.
Yeah, WrestleMania. Hi. We're going to have wrestlers, fans, others, and your referee sitting right here for WrestleMania tonight. You know, we've always had pro wrestling with us, so it seems, but now there's no question. It's in its golden age. More people everywhere are in tune to pro wrestling. The numbers are staggering. Just looking at the World Wrestling Federation, the WWF, we see 20 million viewers watching it regularly, 10 million paid admissions, the largest indoor crowd in history. And tonight, on Town Hall, we've got 135 people in here, and I don't know how many we turned away. And people we turned away, we've had them cry, we've had them curse, because they were turned away. But it is WrestleMania. I'm going to start it off here by introducing a couple of our featured guests. And I'd ask you to come up here, all right? Would you present yourself in the middle of the ring, please? On my right, at 250 pounds, Billy Jack Haynes. On my left, 265 pounds, Mean Mike Miller. Now, you guys know the rules?
And the referee, Mr. Rogers.
Right here. Right. Careful now, careful now. Don't. You might tip me off a little here. Right, right. That's okay. That's okay. I'll be gentle with you.
I don't pull it here.
But you guys know the rules. It's Town Hall. You raise your hand if you want to talk. When I call on you, you talk. All right. Now that's it. Shake hands, sit down, and come out talking. Because after all, this is Town Hall. All right. All right, Mean Mike. I'm going to turn to you. That guy we saw there's pretty good, isn't he?
He's damn good. He is. He's real good.
If you were to meet him, could he toss you around like that?
I've met him before, head on head, in the Portland Sports Arena a number of times.
How does it go?
Pretty rough.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Can you handle him?
He's pretty mean, you know?
Yeah, but is he a better man than you are?
No.
Not really.
Wait a minute now.
Now, what would happen if tomorrow night you were going to meet him? Who'd be the winner? Who'd be the winner?
We get in there one-on-one. We'll see which better man it is.
Who do you think it is?
Well, who hits the gym more? Who's out training more?
All right, you got any secret weapons for him?
I've been in this business 10 years, so I just sit there and I think about it.
Yeah?
I can get it.
You got a good secret weapon? What's your best hold, your best move?
Adrenaline.
Your best hold is adrenaline. All right, back to you, Billy Jack Haynes. How long have you been wrestling?
6 years, Jack.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think about what he said? What if you met him? How do you think it'd go?
Mike Miller, I've been wrestling all over the world, and I have a lot of respect for Mike Miller. He's one of the toughest competitors I've ever faced, and like he says, who's in shape is who wins the battle, and I have a lot of respect for the man. What's your best move? What's your best hold? I'm more of a, I'm not really a real finesse wrestler, although I can wrestle, but I'm more of a street fighter like in my younger days in the ring, but I try and go by the rule book, but if someone breaks the rules, you have to go against that. Okay, if you're playing within the rules, what's your best move? Full Nelson. Full Nelson. What's a full Nelson? Let me show you. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Jack, there's a quarter Nelson, half Nelson, full Nelson, whatever in wrestling. A full Nelson is when you get in behind a man, so forth, lock your fingers. You can try and get out if you like, but you know I'm not going to put much pressure on you. What do you do with you?
Ow, Jesus. Well, that's all right. That's all right. That's all right. Nothing to that. Nothing to it, really. And that's your best move.
Well, put you to sleep if you do it right. Shuts all your circulation, your blood off to your brain, and it can be very dangerous.
All right. We met the wrestlers. Let's meet the fans. How many people here are wrestling fans? Let's see them. Okay. How many people here would say you're Billy Jack's fans? How many people for Mean Mike? Oh, Mean Mike. It looks like even the bad guys have fans, huh? Okay, who would be... Huh? He's not a bad guy. What? Hey, look. Mean Mike is a good guy? Okay, fair enough. Okay, let me look around. Who would say that they're here is the #1 wrestling fan? Okay, you?
My name is Leela McGarry. I'm Rip Oliver's #1 fan.
Uh-huh.
I go just about every Saturday night if I'm not working. I love it. I make signs constantly. I spend probably 15 hours a week making my signs. Rip rules the Northwest. If Rip can't do it, no one can. Oliver's #1 fan. Rip and Brian Adams had a out-of-town match, so I made this one saying that Rip was staying. Grappler is going to be the AWA champion. Brian Adams left. I'm sorry, Mike.
Now you, Sissy.
And Sissy Miller.
That's Sissy Miller? Uh-oh,
Yes.
Look out.
But that's
He'll
not
give you the
meant
half
out of
Nelson.
respect for him as a person, but as a wrestler, I'm Oliver's fan. Oliver hates him. I have to hate him, too.
Okay, let me ask you, what kind of a person are you? What do you do? You said you work? What
I
kind
run
of
a
work do you have?
daycare during the day.
Uh-huh.
I'm a mother of 4.
Uh-huh. Do you take the kids with you?
Sure do.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. What do you like about it?
Everything.
What's everything?
Just everything. It's excitement constantly. I mean, when you're there, you don't see nothing on TV what you do when you're there. I mean, the wrestlers are here and there and everywhere, and they're arguing over here, and they're doing this, and fans are going... Fans fight like crazy. I have not yet been there that I didn't fight with the person next to me because they hate Oliver, and off we go.
You mean you really fight?
Not fist fight. Words-wise, Oliver stinks, blah, blah, blah. And I have to defend him. I'm his #1 fan.
All right, fans, why do you like it? There's a question. We said before it's tremendously popular. Would you introduce yourself, please?
My name's Kathy Rosini, and I do the WWF events in Washington and Oregon.
Uh-huh. Okay, Kathy, I threw out some numbers. Are those numbers right?
Oh, yes. It's unbelievably popular, and I promote many sporting events. And I just can't tell you how the professional wrestling has fascinated me. And I see we have psychologists here, and I'm sure you just have a field day with this because it's a real psychological thing. What I like to look at pro wrestling as is it's the temporary suspension of disbelief. And for the fans, it inspires emotion. It's a socially acceptable way to get rid of the stress and pressures of the day. You can yell and scream, and not only acceptable, but you look weird if you're not. The fan is as much the show as the wrestling.
So it's a drama.
It's a drama, it's sports and it's entertainment, it's both and yet it's neither. It's in a category all by itself.
Let's throw that out to the fans. Fans, why is it so popular? Fans, why is it so popular? Who wants to pick that up? Way in the back, you.
My name's Brian Stott, and I think it's just mainly it's, like the guy said before the show, it's good entertainment.
Good entertainment. Right there, more fans. Right there, you.
My name's Andy Hayes, and I think it's because, like, the guys beat up on each other and stuff. But people say that kids, like, it's bad for kids to watch it. But none of my friends that watch it do anything bad, like body slam and hit people.
If you don't imitate it or imitate them, why do you like it?
Because I just like to see all the big tough guys and stuff, like Billy Jack.
Okay, right there, you.
Well, I think tradition has a lot to do with it, too. You know, here I'm 27. I remember watching it with Grandpa when I was 6. And here it is, the same guy, not the same guys, but you go through your guys, you got some new ones, you just keep an interest in it. And now it's just really taken off with, you know, of course, population getting more and more. And this is tradition of it all really interesting people.
More fans, more testimonials. Right back there, you, sir.
Yes, I think some of the kids nowadays are looking for kind of like somebody to look up to. And I know when I was a kid, I used to watch Tony wrestle a lot, and I really enjoyed it a lot, watching him wrestle all the time. And then I had a feeling like, I kind of get a feeling you were part of somebody and that you choose somebody kind of like the Greeks did and that. They got somebody they select and they stand behind them and they kind of get a build-up like the young lady over there. You really get a feeling inside that, you know, you want to be a part of something and that. And some kids like my boy, he takes to the Macho Man really high, and Billy Jack and you take like Billy Jack and he brings in something that we don't have now, and that's something that represents the Northwest. Very little recognition gets taken to the Northwest. And we get a fine man, a good wrestler who puts on a good act and show and brings some recognition to our part of the country.
Who are the fans? Who goes? What kind of people go? What kind of people go?
Everybody.
Identify yourself, please.
I'm Jean Schlichting. I used to write for Wrestling Magazine. And there is no set person. You get the kids, you get grandma, you've got business people, white collar, blue collar. One of the worst things I think was ever done to the wrestling fans was an article that came out in the Oregonian that put down the fans as being people who came in dirty clothes with beer cans in the back seat and all this stuff. Sorry, I don't drink beer. You know, but it's all ages.
Right there, you, sir.
My name's Eric Donaldson. I'm a photographer at the Coliseum. I handle World Wrestling Federation and all kinds of major events. As far as the audience, the World Wrestling Federation brings the widest variety of people to their events of any events I cover. I cover concerts, races, all kinds of things. We'll see little old ladies hobbling in, young people with brand new kids, brand new families and stuff, businessmen just coming off with their suits on and such. Anybody, everybody is a fan.
All right, let's pick some. Where's a businessman fan? Businessman fan. You, sir, in the back.
Roger Phillips, Abby's Pizza, I own it. And I go whenever I can. My crew, they come with me. We have a good time.
How about, he said they're older women. You've got some older women who are fans? Right there. Did you identify yourself?
Edith Griffiths, and I'm 81 years old.
You go regularly? What do you like about it?
I just love wrestling.
You like the whole scene or particular wrestlers or what?
Well, I had a nursing home quite a few years ago for mental patients. And they would go to bed if I would promise to get them up when 11 o'clock came. They'd go out in the...
Now, some people might draw something out of that. How about kids? Why do kids like it? Right there. Why do you like it? Go back to the kids again.
It's just...
Identify yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm Adam Lukey.
What do you do as a wrestling fan?
What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
You go regularly?
I go regularly. I watch it on TV. I read wrestling magazines. And it's just... It's violent, like if you watch a war movie or something. It's real good entertainment. It's kind of like a clan, you know, following.
You follow it regularly?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Scientifically?
Not really.
What would you like to be a wrestler when you grow up?
I don't know. I don't really know much about what the career is like. Maybe if I knew more, I could decide.
Well, maybe we'll find out some more time. Now, for an unusual kind of fan, I'd like to turn to you and ask if you'd identify yourself.
Yes, I'm Marvin Levitch, and I teach philosophy at Reed College.
Now, you are probably, if we ever talked about the image of a wrestling fan, you are probably the antithesis, a professor of philosophy at Reed College. And how long have you been teaching there?
I've been teaching there about 32 years, and you're right, the physique also won't do.
But this is not just a casual thing with you, is it?
No, I have attended wrestling for a very long time, virtually as long as I've...
Who's the greatest wrestler of all time in your opinion?
Luthez. I think as a champion with considerable athletic skills and someone who I think wrestled with an enormous professional competence, I've never seen anyone with the skill of Luthez.
Now, let me ask you this, Professor. In your opinion, why? What's the mystique? What's the charm? Why the millions? Why the wrestling boom?
Well, I'm inclined to think that in a world in which it is increasingly difficult to distinguish between good and evil, where all the concrete images of good and evil become increasingly marred and blotchy, wrestling is one of the few domains of human activity in which the distinctions are clearly drawn between goodness and evil, heroism and villainy. In a sense, I think the thing which makes it appealing to the contemporary world is that it's a modern version of a medieval morality play in which the virtues are present and in combat, and deep down, that's a spectacle that everyone desires to observe.
Agreed? Agreed? What do you say to that? I'm going to ask you to identify yourself.
I'm tough. It used to be tough, Tony Boy. Now it's not so tough, Tony Boy.
Not so tough. Tony, how long did you wrestle?
29 years, 7 months, and 10 days.
You did keep count. What do you think of that? Is that what it is? Is it a morality play? Is it good and evil?
I can understand why he's a professor of philosophy. Yes, I think that what he says is true.
Okay?
Now, you're talking about fans. Years ago, not too many years, because I'm not that old, but back in Ohio, our #1 fan was the governor of the state. Now, I'm not knocking Mr. Goldsmith for not being at the matches, but John Bricker was the governor of Ohio at that time, and he was at the wrestling matches every Wednesday night in Columbus, Ohio. Had his same seat there every Wednesday night.
All right, other thoughts? We got any, there, right there, you, sir.
Richard Lazare, psychologist.
Okay, that's what I was hoping to hear from a psychologist. Now, what do you say about this? We've heard morality play. We've heard, oh, we like it because it's just entertaining. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think that we've heard people saying that I really identify with these heroes and villains, and it gives me something to ally with and somebody to stand behind. And I think, first and foremost, it gives us a good outlet for our aggressions. It's a way of getting out our aggressions and the pent-up feelings that we have at the end of the day, and it gives us a good outlet, and it feels so good.
I'm going to turn back to you. You said you were the #1 fan. You thought you were the #1 fan. Is that it? Is that it for you? Outlet of aggressions?
Yes. I leave their horse. Lots of times, by the time I get home, I can't even talk.
Where do those aggressions come from?
The day. The world. Look at the world. People are robbing each other. I mean, kids are committing suicide. They're really into drugs. I mean, it's awful. So you go there and, sure, here's the villain and here's the good guy, and they fight it out. You pick your guy and you scream and you root all the way for him. It makes you, I go home sound asleep.
All right, let's whirl around here. Any more than that? Right there, you, sir.
John Adler. I'm a child psychologist in Gresham, and I would agree that I think people tend to identify with these kinds of people as heroes. It may give people some kind of feeling of control in a world where there's not much of that. The concern would be more with younger children, where we've had lots of studies that have shown that people tend to model aggressive behavior, and rather than it being such a kind of a release, people tend to model it, particularly younger children who haven't had their values formed yet.
Have we got some hands up on that? But before we come back to those hands, it is essential. We are sponsored, and we have to do this from time to time. We're going to do it right now. We'll be right back after this.
It's beauty over bronze.
Six Flags will protect it.
On the next win, lose, or draw.
Weeknights at 7 on KATU.
Wrestling and WrestleMania. All right, we're back here live, and I'm going to turn to my right and ask if you'd introduce yourself right there.
My name is Brad Rheingans. I'm a former Olympian and former Olympic coach, and I did wrestle professionally, and I still am.
Now, you say you were an Olympian. When was that?
1976 in Montreal, 1980, which was the boycott. Was supposed to go to Moscow.
And you were an Olympic wrestler, and I see you're wearing tonight. Those are the Olympic rings, and it's kind of timely, isn't it? Because we're seeing those Olympic rings right now. How did you do in the Olympics?
I was 4th in Montreal, and I was slated favorite for the 1980 Olympic Games. I was a bronze medalist in the 1979 World Championships. And, of course, when the boycott came around...
That's 1980 when we boycotted the Olympics in 1980. We didn't go.
Yeah, I just couldn't commit another 4 years to the Olympics. The times were pretty tough up to that point anyway. I was tired of living in attics and, you know, catching a meal here and there and begging for money to train, because if anybody that's in tune to the Olympics knows that it's tough to be an Olympic competitor in this country and make a living, especially if you have a family.
Yeah, that's a tough grind. Brad, we're going to have a look. We have a tape there, and I'm going to ask our director out there, if we can, we're going to put a tape on you in action. Now, here, this is Greco-Roman wrestling. Am I correct in that, Brad?
Yes.
Here you are. Which one are you, Brad?
I'm the short one.
The short one. Red or black?
I'm in the blue, and the Russian is in the red. 7-time world champion, 2-time Olympic champion.
He was, huh?
Yeah.
Who won this match?
The Russian.
Looks like you.
He was the only one I couldn't, the only competitor in the world championships that I couldn't beat at that time.
Now, what we saw here, and you've also done pro wrestling, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
What we saw here, this clip, it looks an awful lot different from what we saw Billy Jack doing here. And I'm going to put this right and just throw it out here to the people here. We've talked about the popularity of pro wrestling. We've talked about good versus evil. We've talked about an athletic event. What is it? What is pro wrestling? Right there, you want to identify yourself?
Yeah, my name is Terry Shanley. I'm also a former U.S. team member. Interestingly enough, Brad and I trained together back in the late 70s. I'm amongst the unpopular minority here. I'm not in favor of professional wrestling.
Why not?
Well, I don't discount the fact that it is entertainment. I don't discount the fact that they are incredible athletes. A lot of them are very, very talented athletes. The objection that I have is that they call it wrestling. It detracts from the amateur sport. It illegitimizes the amateur sport. There have been several athletes in high school that are very, very talented athletes that were not allowed to participate in wrestling because their parents were afraid that they'd be thrown out of a ring or hit with a fold-up metal chair. I don't believe that professional wrestling is real in terms of what happens in the ring. A couple of examples that come to mind is when a 265-pound man jumps from 4 feet in the air and lands on another man's neck, and that man isn't dead, somebody's faking. Because there's a friend of mine that I wrestled with at the University of Oregon that got hit with by an elbow in the larynx, and it wasn't a very hard shot. And this guy is in tremendous physical condition. He speaks with a raspy voice to this day because one side of his vocal cord canal is dead. And he came about 30 seconds from actually dying if it weren't for a tracheotomy performed right there on the wrestling mat.
He must have been in bad shape.
I expected that kind of a comment, but physiologically, there's no way for a man to build up the musculature around a guy's neck to protect the larynx. None. He was in incredible shape.
I'm going to take you back to one of your statements there, Terry. You said it illegitimizes other wrestling. How does it do that, in your view?
Well, I'm not, like I said, I'm not discounting the popularity of the sport because it's incredibly popular. And I think a lot of the popularity, personally, I'm not a psychologist, stems from the same reason people go to hockey games and want to watch a fight break out. Okay? The amateur sport is not the same as the professional sport. And this is the only arena I've ever seen that the professional sport is not an extension of the amateur sport. Golf, basketball, baseball, football, you name it, the pros do exactly the same as the amateurs have done. You've just seen a tape where they are not doing exactly as professionals or amateurs are doing.
You don't want to identify yourself, please?
Marlon Braun, Portland State wrestling coach, head wrestling coach.
I'd like to hear your views on that. You're also from the amateur wrestling community, a prominent member. What do you think?
Well, Terry and I talked about it some. We didn't know each other we were going to be here, but my beliefs are that it's not real wrestling. My belief also is that it's not, I don't want to say that it's not entertainment. Very many people from, like they say, all walks of life are entertained by it. My biggest complaint is that they do compare it to real wrestling, which I consider amateur wrestling. Now, they can call their wrestling real for them, but that's theirs. And I guess in some way I would like to know that there's a difference. And one thing that I've always wondered about, and I've talked to other people, and everybody asks me, well, what makes you think that it's not real? And maybe I'm wrong, but I would like to know if what's amateur sports or professional sports aren't bet on professionally by gamblers.
Now, what's your point on that?
Well, I would like to know, is professional wrestling, do they have a line in Vegas? Is there a line? I've never known that a bookie would take a bet on professional wrestling.
Terry,
to me, I would like
Terry,
to know
I'm going to ask you again. When you say it isn't real, what we're seeing out here are these, you're saying, is pulled punches?
Yes.
And
the reason I say that is a couple of examples come to mind. Boxers, they wear 8-ounce padded gloves, and at the end of a match, their faces are all swollen and puffy. These guys are coming out with bare fists hitting each other, and they don't swell up. That doesn't make sense to me. Another thing is, if you want to inflict as much punishment on your opponent as you can, you're going to do that from a position of power, with both feet firmly planted on the mat or on the ground or whatever. If you watch real closely, whenever they hit somebody, they raise a foot and stamp the mat at the same time they hit them, whether it's an uppercut or down. And you watch it closely, and that's true.
All right.
Tough Tony Board, you've got the microphone.
You're making me hot. Professional wrestling is a continuation of amateur wrestling. I'll tell you, I was an amateur wrestler. My son was an amateur wrestler. I was a professional wrestler for 29 years. My son, wait a minute, shut up, I'm talking. My son has been a professional now for 8 years. He's a great wrestler, he's a great amateur, and he's going to be a great professional. I really believe so. But I consider it an insult to my profession, because there's nothing phony about me. Nothing at all.
Well, nobody's saying, he's not saying that anything is phony about you. What he's saying is basically that it's a drama, that it's acting, that the punches are pulled. Mean Mike, you're not, how do you feel about that, Mean Mike?
When I get in that ring, I give 120% on anything I do.
Hey, I went home with lumps on my face and to where I couldn't talk. I've been where I couldn't talk for 6 weeks too. And that hurts me when I can't talk.
Dislocated shoulder, dislocated knee, broken ankles, plate and 7 screws in my ankle.
Billy Jack, back to you. There you were in action, and there's blood, and you've heard it said that this isn't real. Go ahead.
Okay, this first, I'm not here to put anybody down whatsoever. I mean, these people have their right to their opinion. That's why we live in the United States of America.
You bet.
Okay, and I respect you as amateurs very, very much. As a professional level, I have to extremely disagree with you. I've been in this business for 6 years. I've had over $12,000 worth of medical bills. Pardon this. I've had my teeth knocked out. I've had my nose broke 4 times. I've had 190 stitches in my head. I've had 80 stitches in the back of my head. I've had my ankle broke twice. I've had my knee operated on twice. I've had my elbow operated on twice. I've had staph infection from having to wrestle every night, not just once, whatever. And I think what the whole problem boils down to is that every time there's an amateur match in the Coliseum, you draw 2,000 and we draw 12,000. I think you're jealous of that fact.
Right there, man. Let's take it to the fans. Well, first, let me ask this of the fans here. Going back to I suppose we could get in trouble over what real means, but let's just throw it out to you. How many people think it's real? Fans. How many think it's real? How many fans don't think it's real? Boy, there's lots of people who are fans who don't think it's real, right there. Do you want to go back again, Terry, quickly?
It's not, from my perspective, it's not an across-the-board statement that it's completely phony. I'm certain that there are instances when people do legitimately get hurt, and I appreciate that. And Billy Jack, I've seen you compete, and I've seen others compete. I'm sorry I haven't seen you compete, because I don't watch it very often.
What do you think, brother?
Brother, that's a tough one to call. I respect your athletic ability. I respect the amount of time that you've put into it. And I agree with you. We are jealous of the crowds that you guys draw. We'd love to have crowds like that in amateur wrestling. We would. But I think the popularity of professional wrestling is spawned of the ignorance of amateur wrestling, and that perpetuates that. That's
okay. Well, listen.
Right there. Wait, first, Brad.
Right here. Go to this man.
Okay, we're going to, because he's jumping out of his chair. Brad Rheingans, former Olympic wrestler, former pro wrestler.
First of all, I got to clear up there's a lot of skeptics, and I was a skeptic myself at one time. And Terry and I have run into each other a few times on the mat, and he knows what amateur wrestling's about. And I just want to say that in high school wrestling, you have folk style, you have freestyle, you have Greco-Roman, you have collegiate style. Professional wrestling is an open style of wrestling. The rules are much more loose. You can use hammer locks. There's hour time limits. There's 20-minute time limits. There's 15-minute time minutes. In amateur wrestling, you have 6 minutes in high school, 8 minutes in college, 9 and 6 in international.
Let me ask him and put the two of you a question. What do you say about the coach's point here? He says they don't bet on it. In Las Vegas, you can place a bet in Las Vegas on whether Princess Diana's going to have a boy or a girl in it, but you can't place a bet on professional wrestling.
That's not true also. There was a lot of money bet on WrestleMania 3 last year on every single match that was in it, from Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, onto my match.
Right, Professor Levitch? Right, Professor Levitch?
Well, I think it's very, very difficult to make a judgment of what was involved in calling professional wrestling genuine. First, it seems to me that even if there is some scripting involved, and I think it would be difficult to argue there isn't, nobody really becomes inflamed by the idea that if they're moved by a Shakespearean play, that Shakespeare wrote it in advance. And I don't think anybody should feel terribly injured by the idea that they're moved by something which to some degree was pre-planned. To which I would add the fact that when professional wrestling began in this country and gained a foothold, it took very frequently in championship matches on the order of 4 to 5 hours for one person to prevail and gain a fall over the other. And in professional wrestling, everything is decided by fall and not by points, as is the case with boxing. And I think a lot of the things we're talking about was how professional wrestling solved the problem of preventing a match from going on for 5 hours because no audience will stand it or take it. And a variety of strategies are used to keep a match within manageable limits because people go to sleep too fast these days.
Let's talk to some of those people. Fans. I'm going to hear from the fans here. Let's go. Back there, you haven't spoken.
Hi, my name is Michelle Binder, and it really depends on what wrestling federation you're watching. I don't happen to very much care for WWF anymore.
Yeah, WWF is the World Wrestling Federation. That is the largest. Is that correct?
But they
far
have
and away the largest. Go ahead.
Their recent main event matches took wrestling and made it into a soap opera. With what they pulled with the World Wrestling Belt match, really makes all those articles...
What do you mean what they pulled? What is it? What are they doing? Why is it soap opera?
There was an illegal referee in the ring, but the commission, Jack Tunney, said that, as is always, the referee's decision is final. I asked Mr. Bruce Anderson about that, and no, it is not always final.
Well, you know, speaking of referees, they're not all as alert as I am. We have a clip here that'll show a referee in a match. If we could cut to that right now. Okay, fans, right in the back. You, sir.
My name's Gary Folk. That's one thing I always wonder about it. For years, it's been going on that one guy is being distracted, the referee's being distracted, and the referee, don't they learn that something else is going on, or is that just part of the program?
Right there, you ma'am.
I'm Pat Fernetten of Vancouver, and I think the professor from Reed is right on. The way we feel, my children and I feel about wrestling, is that you have to be a tremendous athlete to hit those turnbuckles at the power and the force that they're hitting it and not feel some pain. And you can tell on television when it's real blood and when it's not real blood. You can tell by the color. My feeling is that this is the era of big league sports. If we can draft a pitcher right out of college or out of high school and pay him over a 2-year time frame, $5.2 million or $3.2 million, then I think these wrestlers who are tremendous athletes have every right to make as much money as any other athlete who's in condition for their sports. It's like a play, and I appreciate the drama and the script of the play.
Right there, you, sir.
My name's Dan Cross. I'm co-editor of the Reed College Quest, the same school that Marvin is from. I think the important thing to remember with wrestling is you have these incredible athletes. I know nobody's denying that here tonight. And they're out there trying to win. But now but the wrestling coach over here also made a good point. You know, some serious damage can be done in certain areas. But that's the true skill of a great professional wrestler, to know just where that line is, and whether or not to go over that line, and how much pressure and pain you can apply to force a submission or a pin without putting the other person out of business, taking away their livelihood, their income.
Terry, back to you quickly.
Well, I think that there are arguments. It's an unqualifiable entity. You can protect yourself, and I'm not doubting their skill level or anything like that. To decommission, the thing that I have a lot of trouble with is their representation of themselves in the sport and what is acceptable behavior. The interviews on TV, the coaches cheating, and they're unsportsmanlike.
Oh, wait, that's a point. What about that? The wrestler is a role model. The image. That's a problem. We just saw there. We just saw cheating. How do you feel about that? Right there, you, sir.
My name is Art Hayes. I'm a father of a fan, and I'm a big baseball fan. I take my son to baseball, take him to basketball, and take him to wrestling. The baseball player, half of them don't have time to talk to this boy. Another half have cocaine in their nose. These people in wrestling, if it's an act, if it's a play or whatever, all I ever hear on TV, I'm not that big a fan of the game myself, but all I ever hear this Hulk Hogan and this man, Billy Jack, talking to these kids about is keep your body clean, stay off drugs, mind your parents, go to school. That's all they're ever telling them.
Right there.
My name's Scott Ferris, and I'm a semi-retired pro wrestler from Portland and all over the world. I started with Billy Jack up in Canada. I think if we're talking opinions here, I think this gentleman's frustrated because he's too small to be a pro wrestler, and I think this gentleman here is frustrated because he isn't good enough to get in the pros. That's my opinion. Now, I'd like to say something else. I'm here to talk for Billy Jack, and I'm really proud of what he's doing, starting his new wrestling federation. I think it's terrific. I tried it myself. I was blocked everywhere I went. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Bill and his new company, and I wish him the best. I'd like for everybody to know that I'm available for training anytime.
Billy Jack, what kind of image do you think you portray to the kids out there? What is your image?
Well, I was very, very lucky and fortunate to get a break in professional wrestling, and it turned me around. And I happen to have a beautiful wife who stood by me and supported me for many years, and have a beautiful father who's blind and right now in a nursing home right now listening to this. And Dad, I love you with all my heart, and everybody knows my father. He comes first. Well, okay, he's riding with my wife, okay?
It's a draw.
But I was broke, Jack, before I got into professional wrestling. A lot of people in here I notice and recognize I didn't have a penny to my name. Wrestling has done everything for me. I was a street kid walking around kicking stones, wondering if I was going to be on Burnside when I was 65. Wrestling has done everything for me, and I'm trying to put it back. I don't smoke, drink, take drugs. Everybody knows that, and I try and influence all the beautiful kids, our future of America, to do the same.
Right there, you, sir.
Yes, I've followed wrestling.
Identify yourself, please.
My name is Hank Schenk, and I'm an amateur wrestler, retired, more or less. And I've followed wrestling for many years, approximately 30 years. And in all my wrestling days, I've never, ever seen an amateur wrestler kick out of a pinning position when he's on his back. And you'll see that happens constantly in professional wrestling.
What about parents? Let's hear from parents. Parents, what do you think about it with the kids? Right there, well, you were on before, Kathy. We'll go back. Parents, right there, you're a parent. You haven't spoken.
My 9-year-old son, he's very much into wrestling. He's got all the wrestling dolls. And I think, basically, he plays with them too much. He comes home from school. He's only got 4, 5, 6 of them. But, like, he's got a Billy Jack here, a Mike Miller here, and then he's got all these. They're not the real people, but he makes them up. But I think he watches it too much.
Why too much?
Well, when he wants to play with it, or play with them constantly. He's got a bike to ride. He's got everything else to do, but these wrestlers.
Well, that just that sounds like it's successful. Well, let's see. It looks like in the next few minutes we're going to have about 20 people to talk, but time is running down. But first, one more break. We will be right back after this.
Cub pricing means fresher produce. The lower the price, the more Cub sells. The more Cub sells, the fresher the produce. Is Cub's produce so fresh because they sell so much? Or do they sell so much because it's so fresh? I don't know. Do you know? Do you?
Cub Foods. It's a new way to run a supermarket.
Talk to me, old great one. Say what?
WrestleMania. All right, I've already had one full Nelson put on me tonight by Billy Jack, and I'm going to get another one if I don't turn here. I could just feel the heat from behind. Kathy, re-identify yourself to our audience, please.
I'm Kathy Rosini, and I promote the World Wrestling Federation.
Okay, now why have you just been hollering at me back here?
Because I can't stay quiet. I would like to sum up what everybody is talking about. Basically, there are 3 groups of people. There are the professional wrestling fans. They don't care about what you're talking about. Is this real? Is this all this other stuff? They don't care. There is also the fan, or the non-fan, and they could care less. Then there is that group of people that are somewhat interested in professional wrestling, and they're trying to categorize it, legitimize it, put it into some category that they can understand. They're trying to make a serious sporting event, such as, not that it's not serious, but such as football, baseball, and all of that. That's where they have the difficulty. And bottom line, it's not what is, let's say, how can I phrase this? It's not in trying to draw up what is wrong with pro wrestling, but what is right with pro wrestling.
All right, now one thing I've got to put to you here, because it's been raised here, and that is the violence. What we have seen here in every scene is violence. Thump, bang, boom,
Right.
crashing.
Right.
Is that going to encourage aggressive behavior, particularly in kids?
Oh.
What's your view on that? Is it too violent?
Okay,
We saw blood dripping.
My feeling is all of us are born with a certain amount of our nature that is quote-unquote violent. Some more so than others. Some are very low-key and quiet. But all of us has it to some degree, although it's not socially acceptable for us to display the violent side of our nature. And as we get, at this time, in the 80s, we have lots of stresses and pressures that they didn't have in the 40s and 50s. So that's why this thing is so popular. We are able to get it all out. We have it, we just have managed to suppress it. And there will always be violence as long as there are humans.
Now, is there somebody here who, let's get the flip side, town hall, or somebody who disagrees, says it is too violent? Do we have people who say it is too violent? Right there, let's go back and see if somebody who hasn't spoken, who thinks it is too violent. Well, it doesn't look like there's much of a vote here for violence, is there? But let's see. Okay, back to you, Mean Mike.
Face this, okay? I've got a 4-year-old daughter at home, and I've just been blessed with a baby boy Monday. And James Michael, I want to congratulate my wife Sutton. She did a heck of a job. But my baby girl, she's 4 years old. I come in, I wrestle around the floor with her. You know, she comes, she keeps on telling me she's gonna drop a knee on me, or she's, you know, she's playing with me all the time. But I see her playing with me, and then she has her little friends come over, and she can stop playing with me or whatever real rough, and she'll go right back in, play with her little dolls, play the little house game, play everything like that. She's not a violent person. She's a very smart child, and I'm telling you, she watches her daddy every Saturday night, and she loves it. You know, and all I faced her is to stand up for her rights.
Right there.
Yeah, I think it's gotten too violent. I can remember back when Ron Starr was crippled for life, and at that point, something should have been done, and the buck gets passed. It goes to the referee. Referee should do something. Referee doesn't. Well, yeah, I can't. It's the promoter. Promoter says, oh, no, it's the commissioner, and the commissioner says, oh, no, take it back again. And, of course, every time the buck goes around, it gets some more friends. Fans are included in that. I've gone to matches where I've gotten thoroughly disgusted because I've seen a really good professional wrestling match that is scientific. And what do I hear behind me? Boring. It's not boring if you watch what's going on. They are finely tuned men who are participating in a sport it has taken years for them to train to do.
What about the bleeding? Would you identify yourself, please?
I'm Bruce Anderson. I'm the director of the Oregon State Boxing and Wrestling Commission.
Now, one thing we hear is that sometimes the use of razor blades to produce blood. Is that in your view?
I've never seen that, but we don't allow it.
You never see it, but you don't allow it. I see. All right. That's right there. Back to you, sir. Go ahead.
John Adler, a psychologist. This isn't just a simple equation. You know, you watch wrestling, you'll be violent. I mean, that's not what we're trying to say. And what you've heard from a lot of people, the wrestlers, the parents, is that these are role models along with ice hockey players. You know, people go there to watch a fight. A lot of other professional athletes, whether it's real, whether it's not, you know, they're role models to people, especially young kids. And we get information from a variety of sources. So you can't predict simply in that kind of a way, but it is one source when it's consistent with a lot of other messages that parents may give their kids, that role models may give their kids, that you solve problems by being aggressive. You're likely to see that. The research does not show that this is catharsis, that kids tend to
You're saying that it
reduce
is
their
an outlet.
aggression.
You're saying that it's something that they may copy.
It may be an outlet for some folks, but the research tends to disprove that and prove that it's more likely, particularly if all the messages are consistent, that kids may watch violence and be
Right
violent.
there, you sir, you haven't spoken.
My name is Greg Matthews. I'm a police officer. As far as all this stuff about, you know, a role model and sort of thing, sure, you know, they are a role model. It's like a fitness type of deal. This is the 80s. These guys are tremendous athletes and things like that, okay? But people watch, you know, you could sit your kid in front of a religious TV show, and then find out later, and I'm not going to say a name because of the sensitivity of the issue. But all I'm saying is that could be the perfect role model for somebody's family, and then all of a sudden they find out later on in the years that this guy does this. Well, now what happens? So, you know, are you going to limit your kids to what they can watch, even though it's a sport just like anything else?
Right there, you ma'am.
Hi, I'm Gloria Cornejo, and I was just referring back to the razor blades. They said that they weren't allowed. Well, I'd like to know why they wear the tape around their fingers and stuff.
Why do you do that, Billy Jack? Why? Why the tape?
Well, I personally don't unless I got a broken finger. You know, I've had, as you can see by my fingers, where's the camera?
Yeah. Billy Jack, I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to ask you this. What kind of a person goes into wrestling? What's your background? How did you get into it?
I was a amateur boxer, you know, and
must have been a heavyweight.
I wanted to be a professional boxer. Had a few bad breaks in my life, and you know, was down in the dumps. Like I said, I'm not trying to make anybody feel sorry for me. That's just the way it was. And I was fortunate at 28 years old to get into professional wrestling. But as far as, I gotta make a comment on what this gentleman's saying over here. Once again, like the amateur wrestlers, I respect you and I respect you, but you're on a completely different subject. You're talking about program. What about Halloween 1, 2, 3, 4?
Well, I think what he's saying is that you're part of that message. He said where the message is consistent. I think I have his point correct.
I understand what he's saying, but I think he's just on the, I think he's out in left field and it's a bunt.
It's a bunt. Right there, you, sir.
I'm Mark Kaplan, the president of the newly formed Oregon-Washington Wrestling Federation. I work with Billy. First of all, I think the kids could do a lot worse than a role model like Billy Jack Haynes. Doesn't smoke, doesn't drink. He's a heck of an athlete. He's an excellent role model. Secondly, in regard to the violence of the sport, she must feel that hockey, boxing, pro football are all extremely violent or too violent for the kids. Very good. That's very true.
You're a promoter. I've got a question for you. We hear there's lots of money in this. What kind of money is there?
I'm technically not a promoter. I'm the president of this federation.
Well, if you're a president of the federation, you should be able to know. What kind of money is in it? Right there, back there, you, sir.
My name is Ivan Kafoury. I own Spartan Media, and we used to televise Capital Wrestling in Salem. And I own the show, and I can tell you what we did financially was very well. I have a letter from Tom Peterson that I use in my selling kit that said, Tom said, wrestling is the greatest advertising vehicle he's ever used in his advertising in Oregon in 20 years. And I'm talking about Saturday Night Wrestling on Channel 12, which is probably the biggest moneymaker on Channel 12. So wrestling is a financial bonanza for people that are tied in, you know, as advertisers or people that are in the production.
Well, let's swing it into the people in the ring. Tough Tony Bourne, back to you. Tony, what kind of a living is wrestling? What kind of money is made?
Well, I was born 30 years too soon due to the exposure that we get from cable television now, where a guy can wrestle maybe in New York tonight and he's seen all over the world. He's popular every place. Me, I'd wrestle here in Portland and the people in the Northwest would see me. If I'd wrestle in Texas, just the people in Texas. So I didn't have the exposure that the guys get now. My boy makes as much in 1 week. I had to work 2 months to make what he makes in 1 week.
How often do they wrestle? I mean, Mike, how often do you wrestle?
Sometimes
250 nights out of the year.
How much traveling involved, Billy Jack?
Well, when I was in the World Wrestling Federation, I was traveling, you know, 6, 7 days a week from New York one day, L.A. the next, L.A. to Montreal. But we're talking 15, 20,000 people per match, so the pay was very well.
But you earn it. Right back there, you, sir.
Yeah, my name's Ted Finley, fan wrestler. You know, there's cons and pros to everything, and I'm a non-drinker, so instead of going to taverns, I go watch wrestling. And to watch Billy Jack, you know, beat the crap out of somebody, it's great. It's a lot better than going somewhere, you know, and having a fight. I mean, that's what I go for. I go there to get my aggressions out, to, you know, yell at everybody to get feedback.
Okay, time is running down. We've got some time left. Let's throw it open. Maybe questions for the wrestlers. Right there, you, sir, in the Notre Dame shirt.
You bet. I'm Brad from Portland, and I've been sitting here listening to this, and you know, you can look at the Mean Man, you can look at Billy Jack. This guy, he's a wrestler. They're built, they're big. You can tell this isn't fake. This isn't any game they're playing out here. You want to look at a game? Let's look at the Portland Trailblazers. Let's look at Kiki Vandeweghe.
We're not going to get in that battle tonight. We're not going to.
We need someone
take somebody down. Right there, you, young man. Go ahead, fire away.
Jeff Dunlop. And what happened to your ear, Tony?
Want to know what happened to your ear?
Well, I could say I got it answering telephones at my real estate office, but that's what you call a cauliflower ear, and it comes from just punches and bruises where the tissue is separated and blood comes in there.
There's one in the back with holding your hand up. Right there, you, Minnie Mouse shirt.
Okay. Billy Jack, what do you think of amateur wrestling?
Billy Jack, what do you think of amateur wrestling? I think you can do that.
Well, I'm very impressed with it. They're tremendous athletes, and you know, the Olympic Games, whatever Brad's won, these people, I respect you very much.
Right there.
I want to know, you know, the WWF is great, you know, it's fine. But when they come to Portland, they always rip us off on a key match. Those tickets aren't cheap for the Portland people.
What do you mean they always rip you off?
They take the best match and they just, bang, it's gone. You don't get it. You get everything else, you get it, and they don't tell you until they're halfway through their matches to begin with.
You want to give a quick response to that because time is running out. Kathy, real quick.
She'll be very happy with it.
Real quick.
The last time we had a match, One Man Gang was not able to wrestle. One Man Gang, or was it the other? Bam Bam. I do so many. Bam Bam Bigelow, he had damaged his knee one day before. We announced it at the beginning, gave you until the end of the first match to redeem your tickets.
Okay, that's good enough. In other words, you're saying it's a bad rap. Way in the back in the green shirt. Just say no.
I have a question for Billy Jack.
Fire away.
Why did you quit WWF?
Why'd you quit WWF?
Okay, real quick and a wrap
Real
up.
quick.
I just got my promoter's license last week. The Oregon Washington Wrestling Federation will be opening here down the road in about a month and a half. We'll also have a wrestling camp. I love you all very much, and I quit. I was tired
Go
of
ahead
the
and
travel.
give your plug. You
I was
came on
tired
here,
of the
you've got a new
travel, but
organization.
great organization.
But you've got your own organization now, Billy Jack. What's the name of your organization?
Oregon Washington Wrestling Federation.
When do you start?
Month and a half away.
Where?
We'll be in Oregon City, where the skate center is now. It's being formed into a mini coliseum.
Okay, gotcha. Now we have to go off. Now, I guess the question is, we've asked tonight, is it real? Well, yes, it is real. Nobody's giving you a horse with false teeth. They're giving you what you see is there. You pay for what you get what you pay for. You come there, what is it? It's whatever it is to you when you go in there. That's what wrestling is today. Thank you for tuning into Town Hall. Thank both of you for coming, and good night.
Next week on Town Hall, join Jack Faust and his guests for a provocative discussion of what is sexy.